Welcome to Ciao Bella, hosted by me, Erica Firpo, a travel journalist based in Rome. Each episode of Ciao Bella, I sit down with Italy's creators, contemporary artists and artisans, designers, culinary experts, heritage brands, and innovative aesthetes, and more who are defining and redefining 21st century Italy. Pull up a chair and join in. Hey, welcome back to Ciao Bella. Today I'm with Laura Lazzaroni, who is an award-winning journalist, an author, a friend, and also a bread consultant. I'm really excited because today we're going to be talking about the new Cucina Italiana. Hey, Laura.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun already.
Well, I'm so excited to have you because I met you a few years back, and when I met you, you definitely by far were the most informed food person I had been around in a long time.
Oh, thank you.
And then, you know, I found out your background was far beyond food because I know you were working with, at the time, I think I met you, you were with Uomo Vogue, Italy's men's Vogue. I was going to say Vogue. And I know you had worked with La Repubblica, and then you became the first editor-in-chief of Food and Wine Italia. And all of a sudden, I started seeing your name everywhere as an author as well.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? It's always been a dream of mine ever since I was a little girl. When people would ask me, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up? I would always tell them, oh, I want to write books. And, you know, I will get this reaction that you can imagine, like only 1 in a million actually makes it that way. But, you know, it took a while, but eventually I did. I published a few books and I'm very happy about it because truly writing is my passion in life. You know, writing and bread, you know, I wear 2 professional hats. But yeah, and I just love writing books. And the new Cucina Italiana, as you said, is the latest one and my first in English. So it's very exciting to be here and talk about it.
Well, that's right. I mean, I know that you have the Altri Grani, Altri Pani. Then I saw the book with Nico Romito. And it was so funny because, you know, when I was doing before the other day, when I was just like making sure I had a list of all your books, I saw this children's book. And I was like, is it possible there's someone with her same name?
Well, you know what? This is a funny bit. Actually, there is a namesake book author, another Laura Lazzaroni, but she does design. So she, to my knowledge, she published a couple of books about design, curated a collection of design essays. I've never met her, also fun fact. So we don't know each other personally, but yes, the children's book that you referred to, Uva Spina, La Scoperta della Vigna, which is a book I co-authored with Francesca Moretti of Bella Vista and with my dear friend, yes, Gianluca Biscalchin, who is a great illustrator and truly one of my best friends. And we did it together. It's a children's book, you know, explaining the world of the vineyard and winemaking, which, as my American friend always note, only in Italy, or, you know, at least only in Europe, you can write a children's book about wine, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, it reminds me of, I have a really good friend from Calabria, Gianluca, and he used to tell me that when he was 6, or like when he started first grade, he would go to school. He's from outside of Cosenza, and he'd go to school, and his nonno would give him like the little bottigliette di vino rosso with a little bit of water in it to bring to school. And I thought that was really cute. But then I also thought it spoke miles about the wine culture here versus everywhere else, you know, with children.
Yep. Only here.
So, you know, I'm really excited to have you because the title of your book, when I first saw it, the new Cucina Italiana, that just, you had me at hello. I mean, that title, I was like, thank you. Somebody is finally putting into words, and beautiful words. I mean, I love the way you write about the Italian cuisine today. And I'd love for you just to give us a quick breakdown before we really get into it of what this book is about.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a journey through contemporary Italian cuisine and also through some of Italy's less known and, for me, most gorgeous corners, you know, like Abruzzo and the Murge Plateau in Apulia, or Collio in Friuli, Venezia Giulia. And it's, what I like about it is that it serves two purposes. You can use it as sort of like a travel guide and guidebook if you want, or you can use it as a cookbook. In its cookbook identity, it's a snapshot of the state of cooking in Italy today. And you have to keep in mind that the working title was Kill the Nonna, as you know, which gives you a sense of the story being told. That's one that challenges the notion of Italian food as inherently tradition bound and backward looking. So the thing is that we love tradition so much, and all jokes aside and working title aside, we love our nonne, our grandmothers, and we learned so much from them in the kitchen. But we've also emancipated, so some things, granted, no one will be able to replicate the way they did and still do. Think of, the sfogline and the way they make fresh pasta. Those gestures are so ingrained in their hands. And, there's other things, however, that in the kitchen were perfectible when they used to, do them and make them as dishes, because they, for instance, they maybe didn't understand 100% the ingredients and what happens in food when proteins break down. So maybe they would overcook, for instance, meat to make ragu, or they would use a bit too much condiment. Granted, this is not for all grandmothers, but for many grandmothers, yes. So our young chefs have learned so much from them, but also learned so much since them. And pulling from different sources of inspiration, their travels all over the world, the community of producers in the territory that surrounds them, reconnecting with, nature, foraging and farming, exploring new techniques in the kitchen, playing with different restaurant formats and playing with mixology. All these pieces of puzzle that come together and build this new mosaic, which of, contemporary Italian cuisine, which is something I always say when I talk about the book to reassure people is equally delicious and comforting as, the Italian cuisine that you've come to know and love, but it also brings something fresh and new to the table. And I think this is very exciting. And the true reason why I got the idea for this book is because having countless conversations with my friends from all over the world and hearing them always reference the same dishes, the lasagna, tortellini in brodo, cacio e pepe, and all those dishes, which are untouchable and forever will be, and they're necessary and they will never go out of style, absolutely. But I really wanted to tell them and show them that there is also so much more between cacio e pepe and Massimo Bottura. There's a whole world of new Italian cuisine that's worth discovering and exploring, and it really plays with such a wide, exciting range of formats and experiences. And so it's so much fun, even more so now that finally even our restaurants are fully reopening. So hopefully people will come from all over the world to try this new Cucina Italiana for themselves.
So because we can't see each other, but as Laura is describing this book, I have this huge smile on my face. And one of the reasons for many reasons, but one of the reasons I have such a big smile is because it's so timely and so necessary. And to have a book like this, because I agree with you. I give a lot of friends from around the world who love the tenets of Italian cuisine. And they have gotten cult status, or they are the monuments, like we were saying before, the cacio e pepe. For me, I would even add vitello tonato. But
absolutely
it is
second that. I would add a risotto, saffron risotto
yes.
Gallo allo zafferano, being Milanese,
I was going to say that yeah, you have to. My husband would agree. But on that note, as someone who gets to write about Italy to the non-Italian, one of the struggles that I face is helping people kind of get rid of the stereotype and see what the current, what 21st century Italy is. And I feel that that's the hardest has been within the world of food. Everybody's like, I want to get that good carbonara and that good pizza. And it's like, okay, and we can go beyond that. And that's one of the reasons I love this book. Now, I told you I read it. I actually read it twice because I just had so much fun. And part of it, I read because I love the writing part, because I was like, could I make these dishes? And then I was like, no, I'm just going to eat them. I'll just keep going out. But I wanted to ask you, because I love how you broke it down into the chapters. You have the chapter on mentors, the chapter on farmers and foragers, the Sunday restaurateurs, the creatives, the pizzaioli. I wanted to ask you, just if you could, just on the more statistical question, how many chefs did you interview? How many people are included, I guess? And how many different areas are included?
Okay, so let's start with the different areas. As you said, it's six main areas. It's mentors, farmers and foragers, and Sunday restaurateurs, fine dining creatives, pizzaioli, and the forces and voices of the neo.
Oh yes, the most important.
And I know, right? They're probably the most popular right now, and they're also a lot of fun. So the idea behind this breakdown was, to give a sense of the range, which is what we said at the beginning, because again, between Cacio e Pepe and Massimo Bottura, who's like the spokesperson for Italian cuisine in the world, that there is all this. So, starting with the mentors, who are, the two probably most important chefs for young chefs coming up now in Italy, who are Nico Romito and Paolo Lo Priore. And obviously Massimo Bottura is, referenced and an icon and idol for all of them. But if we're talking about mentors who are closer to them, age-wise, then definitely the two people you always, hear referred and referenced in so many dishes from these young chefs are Nico Romito and Paolo Lo Priore. And then we have the farmers and foragers, and this is a super, super fun group, which basically...
My friends are in it. I'm so happy.
I know. I love that even within this chapter, there's such, diversity in terms of styles, and the kind of cuisine that they make. They're all bound together, but these concepts of either maintaining their own urban farms or foraging. And even when they forage, the style is so different. So you have, the Montarulli brothers in Apulia who go out foraging on the Murge, super wild Murge plateau with this, elderly guy who rides his Gilera motorbike and has huge white mustache, Cicillo. And I love this image of him riding around in his motorbike with like this huge bundle of wild weeds strapped to the back of his bike, covering his license plate. And, he's someone who's taught these two young brothers everything they know about foraging. So he still goes out foraging in the plateau together. And then they bring everything back to the restaurant and build this delicious, almost 100% vegetable based menu, which is kind of unexpected in Apulia, right? When you go out and you expect to eat something else. And the other unexpected thing about their restaurant is that they almost never serve pasta, because it's something else that you would expect to always find in Apulia. But they say, we have so much more to offer, and it's equally delicious. They make their own bread, which is very good, and the restaurant is called the Mezza Pagnotta. So you go from that to, the Retro Bottega guys were like rock stars in the center of Rome, and they have, their wine bar, and they make bread, and they make fresh pasta next door, and then they have Retro Bottega, their flagship restaurant, which is so creative and contemporary and fun and designy and all that. But they go forage too. once a week, and between Lazio and Abruzzo, and they bring everything back to the restaurant, and they have this iconic signature dish of crepinette, which is sort of like, it's like an everything vegetable elegant meatball. I kind of describe it when I talk to people. It's French inspired. It's gorgeous. If you cut it, it's got all these layers of beautiful vegetables, almost all foraged in the wild. And then you have Alice Delcourt, another super interesting story. She's French American. She's married to an Italian sommelier. She's been living in Italy for so long. She worked at River Cafe in London. She loves the cuisines of, the North Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia. And she brings all of this into her restaurant, and she knows Italian cuisine inside and out, but she puts her own personal spin, combining all these influences. And I always tell people that I learned how to make a great risotto from her. And she's French American, so that should tell you something about new Italian cuisine. So this is Farmers and Foragers, and then the Sunday Restaurateurs, which it is another super interesting section of the book, and it plays with this concept of this sort of like the bourgeois restaurant, right, which is sort of like the restaurant that was born in the cities, especially the economic boom of the 50s. It's the classic restaurant with a combination of familiar fare and elegant service. The restaurant that would serve risotto with with waiters in vest and a bow tie, and the nicely stocked cellar. It's not fine dining, not quite trattoria. It's kind of something in between. And there are young chefs who are revisiting this concept too. The fine dining creatives, basically the Michelin-starred restaurants who are doing elevated, contemporary Italian cuisine. But even in that case, it's delicious dishes. It's accessible. You don't feel like you need to decode, their dishes. You don't feel like oh my God, I should have read 5 books before coming here, otherwise I don't understand the food. This is not a problem you'll ever have. I mean, the cool thing about these chefs, even the fine dining creatives, is that it's they have 2 levels of appreciation of the experience. If you know about fine dining, if you know about all the techniques, fine, you have an extra layer of understanding and appreciation. But if you don't, or if you don't care about this stuff, you can still go and enjoy a fantastic, spectacularly delicious meal. I think of Antonia Klugman, who is I always say that she's a frontier woman, because she operates out of Collio, among the vineyards of Collio with the fine wines. She also forages. She does lots with vegetables. She's on the border with Slovenia, so she puts her own contemporary, personal, fun spin on a cuisine that draws so much from so many influences, Eastern Europe, the cuisine of very humble cuisine, poor cuisine done with, less noble cuts of meat, stale bread, also cuisine that mixes the sweet with savory, that uses a lot of fruit, for instance, in savory dishes, and she does so much with that. And then, of course, we have the pizzaioli, Franco Pepe and Ciro Oliva, both rock stars, frankly, in their own, and both representatives, sort of like to, different approaches, and both exceptionally, masterful in their pizza, so much so that they're now truly known everywhere, but also so connected to their surroundings, the local producers. And
I was really happy that they were both from Campania.
I know, right? And then we have the forces of the neosteria and the neotrattoria, because one of the points that I make in the book is that these young chefs, so women and men, are doing great work on the experience of the restaurant, the format of the restaurant, and probably the most representative format for Italian cuisine is the trattoria. because it's the trattoria is where you truly quote unquote educate the masses to the experience of eating and to the vocabulary of food. And so this is a format where we truly need to invest in most of our energies to bring it into the contemporary times, moving past the red and white checkered tablecloths and the cheap house wine. Not that there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it's the same as with cacio e pepe and carbonara. The important is that access to all these experiences is there. So you can still go to your red and white checkered tablecloths, moms and pops trattoria, or you can try one of the neo trattorie who are doing so much with, improving the way they stock their wine cellar, offering cocktails and offering a more nuanced experience with exceptional research on local products, best ingredients, truly, again, reinterpreting our beloved classics and injecting everything with something new that comes from, again, inspiration can come from anywhere. And the foundation of everything is having this very solid technique that allows them to maybe serve a delicious plate of pasta that's also incredibly light, because the evolution of the technique is now allowing them to make delicious tomato sauce with half fat content, for instance, or to truly preserve all the nutrients in the vegetables, or truly cook meat in the best way possible, according to what animal or what cut of meat you're using, or truly know how to source fish in a sustainable way. And all this ends up on the plate in delicious bites that are good for you, good for the community of producers, good for the environment. There's truly this awareness, and the experience is curated so well so that you truly have the trattoria experience where there's a perfect dialogue between front of house and kitchen, and customers feel like they're, clients feel like they're part of it, they're part of a big family. At the end of the day, it's the experience that counts, right? So this is basically all the book. It's and you were asking how many chefs. It's 30 for chefs and restaurateurs. In some cases, for instance, as in Consorzio and Banco, who are two of the examples of the neosteria and neotrattorie. They're in Turin. The two owners, Pietro Vergano and Andrea Guerra, are restaurateurs, but they're not in the kitchen. So it's a mix of chefs and restaurateurs in the book. Yeah, and restaurateurs, exactly.
One of the things that I really love about the neo-osteria and neo-trattoria, I always call it, like I've been calling it in my head, trattoria V2, like the upgrade, because I don't even think the upgrade is really what I don't mean it as an upgrade. I just mean it as it's, and I think that's one of the things that you capture in that chapter, and you capture actually in the book overall, is that, yes, the traditions, anybody can find the traditions, the mom and pop, the greasy spoon, that kind of thing. But we also have to remember that there are new eyes and new perspectives in the kitchen that are reflecting, whether they're talking about sustainability or, they're reflecting what's going on right now. And that's why there are these neo-osteria, because they're just speaking the language of today. And I think it's really important to see that. I'm happy, there are some places where I live in Rome that have been the same way for the past 50 years. There's an osteria that I love, and I love that. I don't want that to go away. But I also love seeing someone I love going to a neo-trattoria or neo-osteria that's young, and I'm seeing it through their eyes, how they see their food, how they see, how they've interpreted the evolution. Because, a few kind of keywords that I saw coming through was emancipation, evolution, a quiet revolution, you mentioned in your book. And that's what's happening. It's not a resistance. It's not a fight against.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's done with the utmost respect, truly. But the references have changed in the meantime. Also, there's something that many people don't realize, which is that when we talk about our nonne, right, our grandmothers, so you have to think about which generation you're thinking of. For many of these young chefs who are maybe not even 30, their grandmothers weren't, in the kitchen cooking all day long
Exactly.
because they're young. They're relatively
They're
young grandmothers. They're probably a little older than I am. So I mean, they would maybe not cook at all, or they were busy doing something else, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it's just that these young chefs, for instance, can't reference their own grandmothers. Maybe they will reference their great grandmothers. But my point is basically what you just said, which is that it's important to say that one language doesn't mean that the other is no longer relevant. They coexist and just make for a much richer and more exciting experience. And we all have, our favorite no fuss places that have been like that for like 30 years and haven't evolved at all. And maybe, maybe the food is not even all that great, but you go there because you feel
it's
at home.
Nostalgia. It's 10 out of 10. Exactly.
It's absolutely fine. And also, if people are only coming to Italy, once or twice in their lifetime, and all they want to eat is just cacio e pepe, tortellini, risotto, cotoletta alla milanese, it's absolutely fine. And they should do it. I just want people to know that they have other options if they're willing to explore them, because this is what's out there. And one of the other things that I always say about the book is that this is not the definitive encyclopedia about contemporary Italian cuisine. The cool thing is that the book is the tip of the iceberg. There's so much going on, since we wrapped up photographing and doing interviews and testing recipes, there's new restaurants that have opened, in this direction, and more will open, and there's others that I haven't included because they kind of fell, they would have fallen within the same categories and be maybe redundant, but it doesn't mean that they're not worthy. They're fantastic. I mean, in all regions of Italy, there are restaurants who are truly doing an exceptional work with truly upholding our tradition, but also bringing into the modern era and making people happy and feeding them right. And I think that this is fantastic. And what I also like is that, there's no restaurants without people behind them. This is a true fact, and this goes for all, culinary traditions all over the world. It's the people who make the restaurants, and the stories of these young women and men from north to south, I think, are also phenomenal. Their paths are so interesting and unusual. Their ideas are so strong and in a way incendiary, and their passion is all consuming, and if you know them, you can't but love them. So this is a love letter to all of them.
And I think it's it's funny because I think it's a great love letter. And, in the beginning you were saying, and also in the beginning of the book, it's like, this can be used as a cookbook. This can be used as a guidebook. I also view it as, I kind of felt like I was taking a peek in different stories of different people. So like, I don't know, to me, it was also a storybook, or it also is, but a real life storybook. And about people that that I could potentially meet, that I could talk to. I mean, that's what I also really enjoyed about every single person, every single team that you brought up, because I really felt that I got to know the stories, and I've already kind of bookmarked the restaurants I'll be going to. I mean, it's just kind of, the book really excites me because I think the stories you're telling are exciting. The people are incendiary, like you're saying, and the writing is great. Now, I have a quick question for you, because I know that you're an accomplished bread consultant, which I really just hope that's like the only thing you ever have on a business card, because I think it's the best. I want you to call it ABC, accomplished bread consultant.
Oh, I love that.
I'm good at these things. And I know that, I know you're specialized in heritage wheat. Now, I just wanted you to tell our listeners a little bit about what that means, and what you, as this ABC has coming up?
Okay, so basically what I do is I specialize in, so-called old varieties of wheat, which are the varieties of wheat that have been selected by the agronomists of the Green Revolution at the beginning of the last century. And the whole world has, their own old varieties. But the interesting thing about Italy is that we have so many, right? Because of our history, agricultural history, and, of the fact that we make so much pasta and bread. We've developed so many varieties, both of durum wheat and bread wheat, common wheat. And they, they're still, the seeds are preserved in seed banks and seed vaults, and they regularly sown and harvested, and so they've maintained in cultivation. And there's those varieties, and then there's evolutionary populations of wheat, which are my favorite. And they're big mixes of hundreds of different varieties of both old and modern wheat in the field. They grow together, they mix and mingle, and over time they adapt to the environment. Even in dire conditions, they grow well. And they evolve. And the cool thing about, without getting too specific and too much, they don't want to do a deep dive into the botany or genetics of these varieties, which have, also some problems and but also great benefits. So the main benefits are nutritional benefits. They're so full of good nutrition, so their gluten is weaker than that of modern varieties. So they're overall better for you. And also because of, the structure of the plant, they reflect their terroir so well, so that the aromas that they develop when mixing and baking is so complex and truly reflecting the soil that they were grown in. So much so that, for instance, you can pick very specific notes and markers and almost be able to identify a specific variety. For instance, many Sicilian varieties of, old varieties of durum wheat have this sort of licorice and chamomile as secondary notes, which come from some weeds that grow in the fields near them. So this is fascinating. And so basically over time, I've come to know these varieties, working with the local agronomists and farmers and also bakers. I have a degree in biology, so I guess it all goes back to that. And
I was going to ask you.
Yeah. And then, I started writing about them, and then I started baking with them, and then one thing led to the other, and I became a bread consultant. So then now I truly have two professional hats. And so as a bread consultant, basically I consult with bakeries and restaurants who want to sort of like elevate their bread game a little bit, and also do more deeper research on the flours that are available in their territory, in their area. And so we work together to build new products and find new flours. And this is a lot of fun. And so after the first bread book that I published, which you mentioned, Altri Grani, Altri Pani, which was more about, these old varieties of wheat and evolutionary populations of wheat and bread, I'm now about to publish a second bread book, which is more technical. It's more of a manual, and it's called The Formula del Pane, and it's going to be published in September by Giunti. So it's pretty exciting. And this is like a sort of like a preview of the book. And the idea is to basically transfer to the home baker everything that I've learned working, in professional bakeries and restaurants. And there's the format of the book is I think pretty unusual and pretty new. So I can't say too much about it, but I can guarantee you that it's going to make many home bakers happy. That much I can say.
Well, I can't wait for that to come out. I'm hoping that it'll also be available at some point in English.
Yep,
so
I hope so too. If
hint,
there's
hint.
any, you know,
hint out there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. I'm going to ask you a question that you're going to be like, "Die, Erika." Were you baking a lot during lockdown?
Oh my God. Seriously. Yeah, actually, it was so much fun. Look, I mean, you know, we all had to cope with the limitations and the pressure of lockdown, and so my way of doing it was just bake even more than I normally used to do. But the fun thing is that it worked as a connector. So many people contacted me through Instagram, you know, asking for tips and recipes, and so much so that it gave me and the good people at Giunti Academy the idea to do an online masterclass, which we did last year.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to repeat it this year as well, to teach people how to bake a loaf of sourdough online, which is something I never thought could work, because I tend to associate the experience of baking with something like in person, you know,
right,
hands-on, but it can also be done online, even though in my opinion, it's always better to do it in person. But yes, I have been baking up a storm. I baked so much that then we decided to do another book, and we did it basically in 6 months.
So you baked up a book.
Baking. Yeah, I baked up a book, and I baked up a bread club as well. I have like a very small, because I don't have much time, but I have a very small.
You have a bread club too?
Yeah, I have a bread club in Milan. It's like it's for like a small group of mostly friends, honestly, but they subscribe to it. They're very sweet. They subscribe to it, and so I have it when I can. I do it once a week, and I bake bread for them, and it's always, you know, something different with all the flours that I have.
What kind of oven do you have?
Well, I have it's not a bread oven. It's a home oven, but I have a 6-burner stove. So it's a very big oven.
Okay.
And I can bake, a few loaves at a time. And it's a lot of fun. Listen, it's a one thing that kept me sane, probably that, and you know, a lot of virtual aperitivos as everybody else, which I'm very happy to say goodbye to for now. Ciao, virtual aperitivos.
I am so happy. I mean, I wish we could be doing this. I'm happy to say goodbye to everything. I wish we could be doing this in person, but you do live in Milan and I am in Rome.
Yep.
So I guess we're gonna have to meet for a real aperitivo when we can.
Oh yeah.
So I want to let everybody know some details where we can get your book. You can find it on Amazon, the new Cucina Italiana. You can also find it on Rizzoli USA, correct?
Exactly. And you can find it, if you're in Italy, you can also find it in selected bookstores that, you know, offer the service of ordering international books. If you're in Milan, you can find it at Rizzoli Galleria.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah, which is near Piazza del Duomo. And actually, there's a few autographed copies that I signed, a few weeks ago. So if you want, you can have those as well. And I always like to tell people if they can, to support, honestly, independent bookstores, because I love them. So, if you're in the States, if you're in Italy, ask for the book, ask them if they can order it for you if they don't have it, but try and support indie bookstores because they're our heart.
Now, if everybody wants to find out more about Laura, you can, if you go to her Instagram, which is Laura Lazzaroni, double Z. I'm going to spell it out afterwards as well, _ she has a Linktree link, which I love because it's like, it breaks it down. It's like, here are the reviews. Here's what I'm doing. Here's where you can get the book wherever you are. And here's bread consulting. Again, ABC. So on her Instagram, or you can just go to Linktree / Laura Lazzaroni. And I'll be sharing all of this information also at the end of the podcast and on my website. So everybody can find the book, go to a local bookstore.
I hope, if I may add something, I also hope they'll cook out of the book. I mean, cook from the book is important to me because it kind of brings a flavor of this new Cucina Italiana to your home, especially if you're not in Italy. It's a good way of sort of getting acquainted with it. And I have, a tip. The book is obviously pulls from all sorts of restaurant styles. So some recipes are a bit more complex and require a bit more time and maybe also a bit more practice in the kitchen. But others are super easy and doable. So don't be scared. Keep in mind that they have all been tested and for the, home kitchen. So they can be done at home. And I actually hope you will and encourage you to try your hands at them because they're a lot of fun and delicious.
Well, actually, there are a few. There's the cotoletta broccoli, I think, that I want to try. Or is it broccoli? And
it's romanesco.
Yeah, there's a bunch of recipes. And then it's so funny because I didn't catch this the first time. There's also there's a cocktail in the midst of this whole book. There's a cocktail recipe.
Yep. There's actually 2.
Hey, thanks for listening to Ciao Bella. Thanks for listening to this great conversation with Laura Lazzaroni. You're definitely going to want to read her book, The New Cucina Italiana, What to Eat, What to Cook, and Who to Know in Italian Cuisine Today. You can find it in bookstores across the globe and on the internet, including Community Bookstore in Park Slope, Brooklyn, one of my favorites on the East Coast. Keep up with Laura on Instagram at Laura Lazzaroni _. That's LauraLazzaroni _. Ciao! Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ciao Bella. If you'd like to know more about today's guest, please visit ciaobella.co and click on the podcast link, or go directly to ciaobella.co/podcast. Want more Italy? You can find all my episodes on iTunes and Spotify and Stitcher. When you have time, subscribe to iTunes and rate the podcast. What are you waiting for? And if you want to be part of the podcast, email me or DM me your Italy questions. To learn more about me and my work, go to my website, ericafirpo.com, and follow my Italy adventures on Instagram at ericafirpo. Ciao, Bella! And a very big thank you and hug to Massimiliano Yonta and Disc to Disc Studios, the producers of Ciao Bella who continue to make me sound and feel great.